And I can put the link.
Yeah. So that it's the settlement that you mentioned on that.
So what is it, the event page or is it the YouTube event page? I'll just take that. I thought you knew how to do this.
I don't know anything about Google Hangouts.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I can figure it out, but it would take too long.
And can you see us maybe using Blackboard?
Yes, you can see it. You can kind of see it from there.
It's in like a red layer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a read.
Where's Michael? All right. I don't need to. If I told that, if I came tonight, I'd be fluent for it by the end of the evening.
Higher.
Much sooner. 7.5 minutes usually. That's what for a normal learner.
It depends on my IQ, right? If I have a high IQ, then I can learn it that fast.
If you're the right man, maybe. I don't know any other person who could do that. Yeah.
Are you learning Turkish?
No. I'm learning Spanish. I'm a lazy language. To learn languages.
Actually, we're all gonna
At least that's my pattern so far.
Well, you have quite a few available to you.
After 4 semesters of Russian in college.
Oh, wow.
No, I may, argue or, Mandarin.
Yeah,
60,000.
but I've heard once you learn.
How are you doing today?
Later, you said you were in Morocco?
I was, yeah.
I'd like to see if you could understand Maltese later. I've spoken to many people in North Africa, like from multiple. I mean, like in Libya, and Algeria, and Tunisia, and Morocco, they all understand about half of what I say.
Okay.
So, I was at a party this weekend. The guys was in Morocco. You know what I'm talking about? I'm just saying, you like. There are many. I mean, it's a Semitic language. It's yeah.
Be right with you, man.
Where in Turkey were you?
Izmir.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm about to go there.
Are you moving there?
Yeah.
You'll love it.
Oh, what?
You'll love it.
I'm excited.
You will die and go to heaven every day. You will love it.
It's Wednesday.
Take the ferry boat. I love it. I love that place.
Very different things, actually. One is a state
We got a
department.
video.
Chatori, Emrus.
9 months. Yeah. And the other is.
Just a little bit a couple weeks ago. That's okay. I'm renewing myself a name tag.
And I need a sheet so I can like.
Yeah. Quick reference.
There's a little magic time with 20 times.
I made an calendar into it. You have just killed me. Thank you. I just died. It's been my day. It's
Fíjate que hay una calle, como aquí, allá es lo mismo, pero hacen tequila, lo exprimen y luego lo fermentan. Pero, o sea, hacen lo mismo, en esa calle son puras compañeras tequileras de los dueños son puras familias, no hay cadena grande.
Michael, I think it's easier for me to sit over here, so I won't disrupt you.
Yeah, yeah. So wherever you want.
I think that way I won't go in front of you whenever.
Yeah. I think we're in luck.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I didn't see it. That one woman kind of looked into it, but don't worry. God is bigger than anyone. This is security.
We're in luck means it's great.
Yeah. That's good.
It's going to be a great presentation.
All right. I'm gonna go start my little spiel. Okay. You ready? Okay, good. That's the nicest way I know how to get people's attention. I can kind of do that whistle only sometimes. I can't really call it text cat, but I try. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know that you might be tired from work or school or whatever, and there are a lot of options out there, but you chose to go to the language freak section. And I'm very, very happy because I, like you, this is more like an AA meeting. My name's Peter, and I'm a language freak like you. This is hello. I don't have a chip saying how long I've been there. This is the addiction we actually want to feed. We don't want to limit it at all. We want you to lose yourself in it, as a matter of fact. But let me just preface this by saying some of you are new here, and I want you to know this is not a polyglot group. Meaning, yes, we accept polyglots, but no, that is not a criterion to let you through the doors here. In fact, this is free, and no matter what you look like, what you think, or how many languages you speak, even if you only speak half of a language, we'll let you in. Most speak English, they're not even aware of it, and sometimes. So as I said, my name is Peter. I started this thing back when I was unemployed and figuring out, man, what am I going to do with myself? And my sister said, you should start a meetup and get us and stop talking to us about language because you don't care about it. And I said, oh, man, there's got to be some people out there who like this sort of stuff. And lo and behold, there's like over 500 members now. And we got a nice sample tonight, and it changes, and people get connected, and they sometimes language partners can find each other through our meetup. And the best part is, though, is that we learn something, that we exchange ideas, and that we benefit from each other's knowledge and desire to learn more. And so I like to usually have a presentation. Next time around, we won't be having a presentation. We're just going to chill out and grab a bite to eat at Neomond, which I also think is nice, not to have any pressure on anyone to present. But I'm very, very happy to have not only my right-hand man, but a good and fellow language crazy person here who recently went on a trip to Turkey, is willing to share with us his trials and tribulations, his joys, his sadness.
Yep.
And without further ado, I let us stop talking because we're on borrowed time here before the security guard comes in and throws me out. He'll let you stay, but for some reason he doesn't like me. I'll let Michael take it away.
Well, good evening, everyone. How many of you guys have been abroad? Pretty much everybody, okay. So I had a friend who was getting married there that I had a language exchange with on Skype for a long time when we were both unemployed, and he was getting married this year. So I decided I'd go to a city, study for a week before I went to his wedding, and then I can learn Turkish and practice Turkish, and then I can go to his wedding, and that'd be a full experience. So I chose Izmir as the city I wanted to go to, and a school because it's a big enough city where it has a school, and I was able to immerse myself in the language like I've always wanted to do since I was a kid. So this presentation is just about just basically how to actually immerse yourself in it and some tips and tricks for it.
Michael, one question. Can you tell people about the handout that's going around?
Oh, so the handout that's going around, that it's not in chronological order, but I will provide the answers to each of these, or at least I'll say the phrases with the stuff in there. So if you don't catch something, we'll go over at the end. But this is just something that these are just little not accommodation tips and tricks that you can use when you go on your own trip abroad to practice the language if that's what you want to do. So the first thing is planning your trip. So if you're going to another country, I guess you should assess what language you want to learn and what do you want to do with that language. So I mean, is your goal to be fluent? Is your goal to talk about a certain subject just to enjoy the culture or get by without having to use English, or just take a trip away from English for a while, like what I like to do, or anything like that? And so what I did was when I was looking at different schools in Turkey, and I chose Izmir as my desired city to go to. I looked at a school and they have a beginner's course and an intermediate course and an advanced course. The right school. There are some schools, like I was looking at a school in Ireland, for example, and their school is conversational Irish. Like if you don't speak Irish, they don't want you at the school. And there are some schools that they want you to be there for 8 weeks. You can customize the amount of time that you want to be at. I have 3 weeks of vacation at work, and so I emailed the staff. Will I be able to avoid English? Is there a host family and things like this? And well, I got the answer I wanted, so I went there. So at the bottom of the sheet about the type of program or so the next topic. So for example, go abroad. She went to Poland. Was staying in an apartment. She said that along the street, and you can go to different events and stuff. But the downside to that is that if you just go home every day after you able to practice anybody, which is why host family will give you a host family. They will speak to you only in the language, even if you're having difficulty. They'll be polite to you. They'll cook meals for you. They'll teach you about the culture. Like when I was in Ataturk, we talked about the current president there. We talked about missions that used to be and all kinds. We got to talk about so many different things. And when we ate, we got to practice. So you're always practicing the language in the morning when you get up. they're like good night and good morning. You know, when you go to bed, you know you can't talk to them in English because they're gonna be like, what are you saying? So you can choose to. So there are benefits and drawbacks to staying with the family versus staying in your own accommodation. I think there is something on here about families. Yeah, and the third one from the top says this type of accommodation allows you to practice on a bachelor program, and it's really a matter of opinion. For me, it's a host family. For you, it might be a hotel. For other people, it might be, I don't know, couch surfing. So a little bit more about host families is that, like I said before, you can practice as much of the language as you want. You can get as much culture about any topic that you desire. With them, may even go out to the city and give you a tour. And what I found was that a lot of the families don't know English. Like I remember when I was in Turkey, there was a guy probably no more than 30 years old. You would think someone that young would know fluent English in our world today, where English is the lingua franca, supposedly. But this guy was using a translator on his phone the whole time. Like he wrote breakfast at 7:30. I'm like, the guy speaks English. And then later I found out he went to his phone to type in the Turkish word to get an English translation for everything he put into his phone. And so in some countries like there or Armenia or Eastern Europe, you know, there's like they're not going to know, the host family most of the time will not know English, or if they do, it's usually a very minuscule amount, or an amount that they're not going to know how to have a conversation. Just basic phrases like hello, goodbye, hello, how are you, and things like that. And also, yeah, national language, yeah. That's self-explanatory. Oh, what? Oh, that's the section. So whenever you're in the classroom, one thing you could do to maximize your immersion is by responding to the teacher in that language. So most teachers will, at least in my school that I went to, the teachers, they always responded in Turkish. And if you had a lot of difficulty, or if you just could not understand, like you said, anlamadım, I don't understand what you said, then the teacher would explain to you in English whatever grammar concept or whatever it was you were asking. But most of the time, they'll default to whatever the national language was. And also when we went out for lunchtime, most of the students were German. So a lot of students would start speaking in German. I was the only American there, so everybody was trying to cater to me speaking English. And I kept telling them, like, you can talk to me in German, you can talk to me in whatever, or even in Turkish. Like, Turkish is preferred because I'm in Turkey. I want to speak Turkish. But everybody, like, if they find out you're American, they're going to, I don't know if it's because they want to practice English for free, or if it's because they want to accommodate to you. Like I remember talking to a guy, like his English was almost impeccable. And I said, you can speak German to me. Like, I'd like to practice a little bit of German with you. And then the guy's like, what's your preferred language? And this guy knew 9 languages fluently. And I said, I mean, I guess English, but that's only because it's my native. And the guy's like, no, I'm talking to you English. I'm like, because it's like, who cares what my preferred language is? Turkish isn't my preferred language, but I'm in Turkey to practice the language. So that's one of the things you just have to break them down until they respond, as Peter says. And that's actually one of the last one from the bottom. Break them down until they speak to you in the target language.
Until they cry really hard.
Yeah. This technique is most useful in, this is just personal opinion, but Finland, Netherlands, or Germany, or any Nordic country where they will default to English. and you just, like Peter says, you gotta break them down. Just keep talking in the target language, keep doing it. If they respond to you in English, keep going, because they're not going to talk to you in the target language until they know you're not backing down. And a lot of people, or you could just simply ask them, would you speak to me in the language, which I've never tried before. So, and yes, don't fall victim to peer pressure. So because other people are speaking a different language, because other people are speaking English or whatever their native language is, doesn't mean you have to speak that either. Like, I'm sure if I would have spoken Turkish to my classmates when we were walking on the streets of Izmir, that they might have responded in English, but the fact of the matter was I was practicing my Turkish in the words I learned in class, which is most important. So, there we go. So outside the classroom, so if you're taking a course, or if you're at some all-day function that involves the language of the place, then you want to go out and you want to get involved with the population. You want to mingle with the people. Go to restaurants, bookstores, anything where people are speaking the language, where you can see native culture. Like I went with a Dutch man, one of my Dutch classmates, and I went to an open air market. I went to a bazaar, and everybody we had the bargain in Turkish. We had the bargain, this pair of 3 socks for 5 liras, for example, and we had the bargain with everybody, and you get a lot of practice in your target language that way, because most of the shopkeepers, they don't know English, and a lot of them will, even if you're a foreigner, will at least will give you, might just say numbers, like you'll say, how much, kaç, whatever, blah, blah, or kaç lira, and then you hold up the item, and then they'll just tell you the number, like, 20, or 02's 30. So they'll just tell you the number of the price, and you conduct business. And then, like I said before, if you want to maximize your immersion, just stick to the native language, stick to the national language, or whatever your target language is. I know there was something else on the sheet. Okay, I think the third from the top says, in groups, speak the target language with the groups, even if they respond in, and this was supposed to be English, but whatever language is being spoken. So interacting with locals, I found that when I was at the open air bazaar, I talked to a lot of the people. I remember I stopped at the postcard store, and I was speaking, like I had full sentences. I was talking to this guy in full sentences, and he said like merhaba, and then he responded with silence, like he didn't even say anything. He didn't speak English to me. He didn't speak Turkish to me, nothing. He just responded in silence. He was just pointing at things or writing down numbers on a piece of paper. A lot of locals might try to do this because they think you can't understand what they're saying. And that might be the case, but if you want them to respond, you might want to ask them, like, can you please speak Turkish to me? Or whenever you talk to them, and if you don't mind their silence or their sign language or whatever it is they're using to communicate with you, you can use that to get what you need done. But simply asking them usually is pretty powerful. You'll get most of them to speak up. And also, whenever you're, yes, they're too. So I was at a store buying sea salt. Like, you look for sea salt, and so I'm trying to I'm Turkish going, and I remember I kept breaking him down, and after like 30 seconds, he finally switched to Turkish, and because I think my group, all the German people, one of them was just like, yeah, he's gonna keep speaking Turkish here. So then the guy finally responded in Turkish, and then I was able to get what I needed, and we were able to, cash out and everything all in Turkish. So that was a nice experience. And again, break them down by continuing to speak in a native language. It's a very good line. Because of you, the moment that you stutter and you speak English, or even one English word comes out of your mouth, then that's going to be their I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
Foothold.
Yeah, their foothold, like, yes, get to speak English now. They don't know my language.
Although, what do you think, Michael? Do you think it's really on purpose? I wonder sometimes if it's sort of at a subconscious level. They're not trying to really hurt you or anything, but they're just so excited to practice their English.
Right, they want to practice their,
Yeah.
And I would practice my Turkish.
because they figure you're struggling here.
Help you, give them your money, right?
And that's the thing, because you have the money, you can control the situations like, oh, if you're not gonna speak Turkish to me, this guy might. Bye.
Yeah, they're afraid of the opposite. They're afraid that if you don't speak English, you'll go somewhere else where somebody speaks English. So I think reverse switching that around, like you said, is a brilliant tactic.
So Turkish.
Yep. Oh.
Add that as a comment to this meetup, please. That's awesome.
Let's see. Oh yeah. That's a little story. So I was at the hotel. I was getting dressed for my friend's wedding, and I went to the room. There was another room where I had a couple of his friends were staying, and I went there, and the guy started asking me if he could use my toothpaste in Turkish. I later found out, but I didn't know dish for chasa was a toothbrush, but I didn't know what toothpaste is like dish pastası. So it's like toothpaste literally. And I couldn't understand what because he said it so quickly. And so the guy that he was with, even though his English is not the best, he started talking to me English like the guy was asking if you could use your toothpaste. And I got so frustrated, like, I was talking to the guy in Turkish. Why did you have to butt in and respond in English? And throughout the evening, I would when we went back to my friend's house, my friend was able to explain to him like, hey, don't talk to this guy in English. Talk to him in Turkish. He's here to practice the language. And then for the rest of the evening, the guy didn't respond not a lick of English. He even told me in Turkish, he's like, I didn't want to talk English. I'm in Turkey. I should only have to speak Turkish. I'm like, exactly. That's what I wanted to do the whole time. And my favorite part, enhancing language immersion. So mingling. So this kind of goes back into what I was saying earlier. You want to find, actually that's the first one on the sheet. Go to local and cultural events and that have many native speakers. So just one example. This is kind of off the road a little bit, but when I was in Fredericksburg, Texas, which is where probably the strongest German and heritage outside of Germany is in the world, they speak this weird dialect called Texas Deutsch, which a lot of Germans will tell you is crap German. The other Peter said that to me. And even though it's so mutually intelligible with their German. And so when I went to this event and I don't even know where, in the middle of nowhere, probably, there was a whole bunch of people and there were young people and older people. And I remember these old gentlemen had gotten up to the podium and they were speaking German or their local dialect of German. And this is just an example, like, these kinds of little events where a whole bunch of people get up, like a cultural event, an event for Ramadan, or there might be like a public Ramadan dinner, because I went there like literally the day after Ramadan is when I arrived in Turkey.
Good time. Good time.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't get there before, because but yeah, and so I mean, there might be events like this where speakers talking in Turkish, the singers who might be performing songs are in Turkish, you'll hear native speakers all around you speaking Turkish, and most of them might actually be consuming alcohol, in which it might give them a little bit more social power. So you could practice with anybody really at these events. And so when you have that many native speakers with you and a cultural topic to talk about with the event, then you can get practice in a certain area for that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to anything like this, but I remember in Texas I had that experience. And then yeah, listening as well. If you feel comfortable recording things like that, it's always nice to replay it back and just try to see what they were saying. So getting more from teachers. So in my school, at least, when I was in class, I would go out after class. I would see a whole bunch of stuff. Like there's this evil eye thing, which in America it's somewhat common, but in Turkey it's really common. Like you see those evil eyes everywhere. And I remember my mom's boyfriend wanted one of those evil eyes for a souvenir, and I remember seeing them all over Turkey. So I asked my teacher. I asked her, evil eye nasıl demek, or ne demek? How do you say this evil eye in Turkish? And what does it mean? Because people in America couldn't tell me what it meant. And so she told me what the cultural significance was behind it. It's basically like a way of protecting your environment from evil spirits or something. And then I was able to ask the teacher. So she told me how to say it. Nazar Bonju. I still remember the word. And which is like a Nazarbi. You don't know what Nazar means, and so she was able to talk about a lot of stuff, and a lot of the other students would ask them about things they saw around the city, like what is this big building I saw? What is a Sancer? What is this and that? And then the teacher will elaborate. This is what this is. This is what that is. And because the teacher is responding in Turkish about the cultural topic, you may, by asking your teacher that question, you may learn the words in Turkish. You may learn about maybe a whole brand new grammar concept behind what she's talking about, or anything. So if you're in class, really any school, you should be able to ask your language teacher at any school about culture that you see around. If they don't ask, then if they won't answer, then it's not a good school. But yeah, just asking your teachers about what you see, about what you're doing, that will maximize your experience. Is there anything here about that? Nope. Yeah. So I read a lot before I went to Turkey. I read a lot of stuff online about what you should do as an American going abroad. And a lot of people, I was actually shocked to find out that a lot of Westerners who go to these countries that are not Western or are different from your basic Western country, they go there. They eat a lot of fast food, like go to a Starbucks for coffee, or they'll go to a McDonald's for lunch, or a Burger King for dinner. Like if you're in a country, like if you go to a restaurant, you're screaming tourist to everyone. So the way to get around this is if you're in Turkey, there are tons of native Turkish cuisine. A lot of it is Arabic influenced, in my opinion, but the point is you can go in there, you can order your foods in Turkish. A lot of times you'll get even if you're just going in there for a coffee, there are bars where you can literally just go in there for a coffee, a Turkish coffee. They're really small, but you can go in there and ask them for a coffee or ask them about the food. You can hit your server up for a conversation on a topic besides food. You don't, just because you're at a restaurant doesn't mean you have to talk about food. And that's another opportunity. You have a native speaker comes to your table, a native speaker right there that you can talk to about anything in the language you want. For me, that's free target language practice right there. There actually is a blog for this as well. When eating, this is the fourth from the top. When eating, talk to the server about more than just food. And really, I think that the more native cuisine that you eat, the more opportunities to practice the language, and the more culture that you get. I mean, there seems to be a culture. There seems to be a culture aspect to speaking the language. So it's not just about speaking the language. If you connect the culture to speaking the language, then it really not only does it enhance your view on wherever you're at, but you can also, it can kind of actually help you to understand the language a little bit better. It can help you to understand, certain things, like, for example, because Turkey is a Muslim country, some people say assalamu alaikum to people, and certain things, or inshallah or mashallah. There's a lot of these little greeting things that people will say in Turkish, or estağfurullah, another one that they say because of their culture. And so knowing the culture and getting connected to the culture is another way of learning the language a little bit faster.
What's the last one that you said there?
Hmm?
Means if God wills, right?
Yeah.
And what's the last one that you said?
Estağfurullah.
What does that mean?
It's like asking for an apology. It's like, sorry to God.
Oh, like an apology?
Yeah.
Saying I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then unfortunate circumstances, which I have a little story about that too. So the first one happened to me. I had when I left here, I had to fly out of Raleigh. It was supposed to go to New York and then go to Istanbul to Izmir. And so they said, well, that flight's not leaving till tomorrow, so you'll have to go to Boston if you want to get out. And so the guy saw that because I was only going to be in Turkey for 7 days, he's like, we got to get this guy out now. Like, he's missing like time. He's going to be here for 1 week. So when I got to Boston, I got to where my destination safely. I got picked up, whatever. And then the day after I got back, or the day after I got in Turkey, Turkish Airlines canceled my flight. And I'm like, okay, I am in Turkey. So I got on my flight. They said, and I was calling Expedia day in, day out. And so I had to go to the office and I had to use English. I didn't want to use English, but when you have unfortunate circumstances like that, if you use Turkish and you say the wrong thing, or you can't, like, I was trying to explain to my host family, they were asking me, like, why did your ticket get canceled? What happened? And obviously I wasn't going to be able to tell them in English because they don't know English. So I had to, even though I had to explain to the host family in Turkish what happened, I remember asking them, I'm like, do Turkish Airlines, do they speak English? Because I don't want to have to try to haggle my way into a free ticket by speaking English. And they said, and the responses I got were like, they have to speak English. Like, that's a requirement. If you want to work for Turkish Airlines, you have to speak English because you have people from all over the world coming to and out of Turkey. So that's a thing when you want to speak it. Another situation is if you're talking to somebody and you are absolutely at loss for a word, and you literally don't know, you can't improvise. Like, if you say, like, for example, if you have like konuşmak to talk to someone, and you say sohbet etmek, which is like to have a conversation instead of talking, then it wouldn't really change the meaning that much. I could be like, I conversed to him something versus I told him something. It won't change the meaning much. But if it's like you're trying to buy a kilo of oranges and you don't know the word for an orange, then you literally would have no idea how to say that. So you might have to crack out your dictionary. You might have to point. You might have to say it in English. Maybe the person knows English. Like, there was a guy on a language Facebook group I'm part of that said he was in Hungary. He's been in Hungary for the last 8 months, and he said he was at a market and he was trying to buy, I don't remember what he was trying to buy, some vegetables or something from a supermarket, and he was speaking Hungarian, and he asked, how do you say, this English word in Hungarian? And so, thankfully everybody at the store knows English, so they were able to give him the Hungarian word, and then they basically just carried out the rest of his transaction in English, unfortunately. But but the point was that he asked them, and the people knew English, and they were able to give him, or they appreciated his effort. But if you don't know, then you don't know. And also, the another thing that might stumble you is like I remember I was having I was at my friend's wedding, and I was trying to have a conversation with him, and actually, yeah, this is the guy that said he doesn't have to speak English. And I was trying to talk to him about I don't know how we got on the politics topic, but we were talking about the government that Turkey has, and then I was just like, yeah, I don't know what you said. Like these are political words that are out of my active knowledge. So I had to go find my guy that knew English, and I had to ask him how to say whatever the concepts I was trying to find. And the same thing happened. Like I remember I was at my host family's house, and we were talking about Ataturk, and I was trying to say separation of church from state, and I'm like, yeah, the guy had to type it into his phone. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how to say this in Turkish. I try to translate it literally with my brain, and the guy's like, anlamadım. I don't understand. So I mean, sometimes you have to revert to your native language, although obviously we frown upon that. But when you have to, sometimes you have to speak your native language. Sometimes there's no way around that. And let's see. Oh, their name and circumstance when you can use your native language, and that's really a matter of personal opinion. I believe that's. Oh yeah. Does anybody else have any comments
I
or
have a question,
tips?
Michael. So I when I was learning Spanish, early days, I listened to this podcast. I had this podcast called Trying to Learn Spanish. Not learning Spanish, trying.
That's encouraging.
And he talked about, I think he was an older guy like me, or maybe even older. Anyway, and he said he did an immersion experience in Latin America somewhere. He thought that's the best way. He went with zero knowledge of Spanish. That was his first thing he thought he should do, because everybody said, you want to learn a language, go to the country. He said it was the longest 2 weeks of his life, because he didn't have two words to put together.
2 weeks.
So my question then is, what was your preparation before you went, and how, what is a good level to be at before you jump into the deep end?
And you were only there 1 week, right?
Yeah.
Or is that, so,
For me, fortunately for me, I had been studying Turkish on and off since 2010, but in 2012, I was practicing with this guy whose wedding I went to. He was trying to learn English at the time. I would say, yeah, and I hadn't spoken the language in probably 2 years. And then when this year started, like January, February, I started hiring teachers on Italki for speaking Turkish to me, because I'm like, I'm going to Turkey. I don't want to have to speak English in Turkey. Please, like, talk to me in Turkish, and no English allowed, please. Like, if I don't know English, say I don't know, bilmiyorum. And so I think if you're able to make sentences, whether or not you can understand them, because you can always ask them to speak, the hayavash, a little bit slower, please. I would say if you can build sentences, you can get the basic gist of a newspaper.
Okay.
And like basics, like how to order food. You don't have to worry about customs because they all speak English. Just like how to order food, how to ask for like a ticket for like a bus or a train. How to just basic things that you need to get around, like base. I mean, if you have a basic grasp, like if you can build sentences and things like that, you may already know that stuff consciously. Like I never actually studied like how to order a meal in Turkish or how to go to a bank and ask for stuff. I just used what I knew inside my brain and just built sentences, and hopefully they understood it, and they did. It sounded awkward to them, but the point was I was able to. Communication is more important than
perfection. Yeah, than not knowing it at all. So, yeah.
My experience, I studied the equivalent of maybe a couple weeks of Italian. Well, I also went on about 3.5 years of dates in Italian. So 2 years, 3.5, yeah, somewhere there. So, so yeah, I had some exposure to it, but when I moved to Italy, I mean, it was like, I was in a place where very few people spoke much English at all. And I just felt so isolated for the first 3 months until I started finally getting some good enough to speak. Now I'm not as bright with languages as Michael here maybe, but it definitely was a struggle, and it's such a nice way to feel. Did you ever experience going from Life of the Party to Wallflower in about 10 minutes? You go there and everybody's like, American, I'm gonna speak English with you. And 10 minutes later, okay, I've run out of everything I can possibly say. I'm gonna go find an Italian to speak with. So you're going from,
Yeah.
everybody wants to talk to you to,
Yeah.
we're done now.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience that?
Yeah, it was more like everyone was asking me questions and then in Turkish or in English, and then after 10 minutes, everyone was just like back to their normal selves.
Right.
So,
See, that's what concerns me. Like, I want to go live in China for a couple of years to do the same thing.
don't tell them you're American. Tell them.
No, the problem that concerns me because to top that off, you have the time not on your side because it's a 12-hour time difference. So it's not like I can just Skype with anybody back here on the western side and then just kind of like not feel lonely. Yeah, so it's like I've been, like right now the only idea I have is for the next year, just try to learn as much Mandarin as I can, because once I'm there, it's like I'm not gonna be able to like talk to anybody back here.
Well, that's something to consider,
Do you guys have any ideas?
Where do you plan to go? And you can probably find, like, a meetup group, Meetup's international, right? Absolutely. You can find a group of
Is
people.
it?
A group of
They have it in
fellow
Korea.
Americans, Nava. I remember our conversation before. So, fellow Americans or whatever, and just whatever language group you want. I mean, and,
You see, that's like a double-edged knife, though. Because,
Yeah.
like I have friends in big cities like Beijing, Guangzhou, but then it's like the risk that you actually take with that is that eventually you end up hanging out with them all the time.
You gotta have
And
something
then you're like,
once a week.
speaking English all the time, and you're like, oh my god, I didn't come here to hang out with Americans.
John
So
Wynn.
I don't know how to handle that.
Speak John Wynn.
Do you really want to be connected to English at that time? Do you think that will really help?
I just don't know if I'm gonna have that isolation,
Just take them as 3 months.
Western China. Go to Western China. You'll get it. Go to Xinjiang.
I'm still figuring it out.
It's a very personal decision. I can say that when I was in Germany, I didn't relent. I spoke German to everyone, and it took about a half a day for me to be alone, and it lasted about a year and a half. Nobody would talk to me because they knew I wouldn't answer them in English. And I don't know. Even though it was uncomfortable, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I never for a
How much did
second.
you prepare learning German before you went?
Not enough. I had 2 years of German before then. 1 year in high school and 2 semesters.
Because now I'm getting
college.
antsy. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, maybe I'm being overly cautious, and then my body's just gonna escape me.
I say
and
go
I'm
for
gonna
it.
chicken out.
Go
Yeah.
for it. You can do it.
So Sophia, you spent a year in Morocco.
Yeah, I just.
Did you have the 3 months of really tough time, or were you well prepared going in?
It was sort of a different situation because my host family, I lived with a host family who didn't speak English, but I spoke with them in French, which I already spoke. So it was sort of ideal because either way I was either practicing my French, which I was good at, or my Arabic, which I had none of before going. So I was practicing either way, but because I had that French, that was sort of my equivalent of English when going abroad. Because I had the French, I didn't get as far in Arabic as I would like to have. But before I went, I read a lot of Moroccan Arabic, like I had a textbook, but it's really hard to find. I didn't have any speakers in Harborough, North Carolina, to practice Moroccan Arabic with, and there wasn't really much online besides classical Arabic. And because Moroccan Arabic is only spoken, it's not written, there were so few resources that I just read a lot of it like transliterated in the Latin alphabet. And then when I went, I heard things that I had read and they sort of clicked in my mind. But I definitely didn't know this list that Michael just said of like things you should know going into the country. I did not know any of that in Moroccan Arabic before going. And it was fine, I learned it.
Do you know Moroccans in the area now?
No,
I have a friend
I don't.
I have a friend who's, it says he's from France, but originally he's from Morocco, so.
Well, I've only been back
Talk to
for
me
a
after.
short time, so.
Talk to me afterwards.
She's leaving
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
I leave for Izmir, Turkey. on
Well,
Wednesday.
fine. I got some Turkish friends to take.
Okay,
Bring them back.
yeah,
Because when you get to see him, you can tell him you know Michael.
I will.
There you
Still
go.
don't.
There's your connection, go to the bazaar.
Ah.
Let's go. Or I'll make you some Turkish.
Only in Izmir.
I was actually wondering what your language school was that you went to.
What was it? I remember it was 6402 Stokok.
Was it the Tomer?
Um,
That's like the biggest one.
I think it was Was it I? Yeah.
Alright.
Atem Yurtisha something.
Okay, I'll talk to you after.
EYE. Yeah. I remember where it was and what it was called, but
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
I think the best thing when you're in a different country, I lived in France for 15 years, is to share activities that you like with them. Like for me, it was playing guitar, playing soccer. I made tons of friends. Another thing is to ask yourself the question, what kind of value I can bring to them? For me, it was the English, because in France, they want to learn English. So I, once a week with the meetup group, made tons of friends, helped them with the English discussion, and, so, but it's an adventure, don't be afraid. Just go. And it's gonna be a challenge. I'm lazy, You just ask yourself, what kind of gifts I have, what kind of people I enjoy to be with, who are my tribe, and then go and enjoy with them. So that's.
Yeah, like going off of that, I found there was a point when I stopped being the American, like my whole identity was being that American girl. And when I actually started to have my interests, and I was a person who wasn't just an English speaker. And I found that there was less of that, like just stopping to talk to you when they've finished all their English, There was less of that when you actually had things to talk about in your language instead of let's practice Arabic. But like, oh, let's talk about this and asking them questions and being a person and not just a language speaker.
Yeah, like for me, everybody thought I was from Syria. Probably because of my beard, I don't know, but
Yeah, you're
thank
Phoenician.
yes, that's even better. But like, the only time that people knew I was American was if I opened up my mouth, or if I was
Feelings
with
different?
the big.
Are the feelings different?
Hi. And I think that a lot of people really only recognized it whenever I was with the Germans or the European people. Like that's the only time they were like, "You're a tourist," automatically. But if I was traveling by myself, which I was most of the time, people didn't.
Safer.
Yeah.
Did you go around with a baseball cap? T-shirt.
No, a baseball cap will scream American.
White socks too. White socks.
And oh yeah, by the way, the theory about wearing white shoes in Turkey and people thinking you're American because your shoes are white is not true. Because Turkish people wear white shoes and no one cared.
How much does, would you say culture influence, I don't know, and I'm just gonna throw it out up there, maybe you all can help me. But at some point, here in the United States, I actually lived in this building near a university, and I was the only, everybody else was either from India or China or, Korea. But since I was then already kind of like dabbling a little bit with Mandarin, I would try to speak to them, to them, just saying, ni hao, whatever, And at some point, they wouldn't respond. Sometimes we just wave and keep walking. And one person told me that it's because, culturally, they're used to not talk to strangers. So it's like unless you have been properly introduced, They're not gonna, so I'm like, that's another reason why, the isolation is like, man, I'm gonna get there, I'm gonna try to be talking to everybody, and they're gonna be like, go away, I'm gonna be like, man, I'm gonna feel so alone,
You just need one person to introduce you to everyone, like a chain.
All 3 billion people or whatever.
1.37 million.
You have to remember.
India's gonna surpass the population by 2030.
Yes, sir. That's the shit. So in China is about as far culturally different as you can get, and there may be some, all right, there may be some.
Top on the guineas, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Take a trip there and see 1,000 different cultures.
Yeah. Some of them will take your head.
Only your head.
So I guess I do wonder, is there that difference, sort of this, is it typical to have this sort of 3-month sort of window of isolation?
I've heard that before.
That's not a question I can answer.
It does happen, though, it does happen, yeah, you can,
But also,
Survive
is it maybe, for people who've been to multiple countries, sort of the extremes of, Western European country versus, Middle Eastern country versus Asian country? Like, is there that sort of difference with trying to speak the language? Do you do?
the thing is, like at the end of the day, because when you first wake up, you got all the energy, you're all fresh, you're thinking, and you're like, yeah, and then by midday, you got this energy, and then by 4, 5, 6 p.m., you're like, I'm so tired, I don't know what you said.
Your brain.
Yeah, just like,
How do
you're
you
like,
get ahead?
man, I need to speak English or something, and then, imagine also that you are, completely illiterate, because you can't come home and read a magazine or newspaper or turn the TV,
Right.
unless you have like American channels or British channels. But so then it's like, okay, I cannot entertain myself watching TV. I cannot read a magazine here. So it's like everything gets
Good.
like cut down.
There are a lot of factors that come into play here. Really, a lot of people say this language is the hardest language in the world, and this is the easiest. And that's really a matter of opinion, but I would sort of propose that the language that's the hardest in the world is the one that's most different from your native language. So how many of these things are different from your native language and culture? Germany is really similar. I think that's why after 6 months, even though I had basically no friends and nobody wanted to talk to me, I kind of could converse. I got over that hump where everything hurt. Like, it was just so exhausting. I could kind of get through it, didn't have to think about every single thing. I think that's because of the similarities. If I were in China, I can only imagine the hurdles that I'd have to go over. I think it would last longer. I think it would take longer. Maybe.
And I guess that was what my question was sort of.
The food is similar too, when you drink, the whole, like, to me, it's overwhelming just to think, to be completely useless if I walk out of my hotel and I want to take a bus and I don't know what the heck it says. And then I turn around and what is this? Is it a movie theater? Is this a school? And that's the thing that right now I'm running the simulations through my head.
Good.
And I'm like,
So there's a Confucian Institute that teaches Chinese here, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They have formal classes before you go.
What?
There.
Confusion is
Yes, I think you were gonna say some more.
Do not speak English in your class.
Weren't you gonna say something else? I'm sorry.
For the sake of-
yeah, no,
Well,
that's
no,
what I'm
I
trying to
was
say.
sort of, he basically summed up what I was trying to say, which was, I think sometimes like if you're going to France or if you're going to some Western country, that maybe because you're not having to deal with not knowing an alphabet or a character system that's completely different. There's so many things that are common that maybe it makes it a little, I won't say it's easy, but maybe a little easier versus if you're talking China or.
It's easier now than 20, 30 years ago, because you can Skype. You can do, what's this? My wife found something that was like free texting app or something.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
What's that?
What's that?
That's it.
Yeah.
So use that for
WeChat,
Yeah, so it's so much easier to keep in touch and make contact back with Earth, or back with your native country.
What's really hard is understanding that learning the language doesn't mean you can use it. Like in France, it's very implicit culture. It's not what you say, it's what you imply, America is exquisite culture. What you say is the message. Like in France, you have to live for a long time in order to really communicate. Because, they say the things that have nothing to do with the message. And it took me a long time, it was really frustrating. So it's like, one thing that's really good to do is to observe people talking. Observe the nonverbal, there's a lot of, like, in the implicit culture like France, there's a lot of nonverbal. The Arabic culture, I'm from Iraq. So the Arabic culture is tons of implicit also. So you have to really understand, what's behind what they're saying, There's a lot of system thinking, like family, they talk together, So it's, so it depends, Like France is really very hard. United States, I think you have the language, you have the communication. But in France, no. You have the culture, you have the 5 years, and you have friends helping you to understand the communication. Then you can communicate, and you still make other mistakes.
If you learn enough language and you can watch television from that country, you can observe some of those things even before you go.
Absolutely. When I lived in France for almost like 2 months, I kept listening to debate because I like intellectual stuff. I didn't understand anything, but I get the music of the language, But I was very curious. Also, you will learn according to your lifestyle. Like if you like to read, you're curious about TV and programs, asking people. Yeah. So you have to have one friend from the culture who has some interest in your culture. That would be the bridge.
So I'm working on it right now.
You can pay them.
And when I moved to Italy, it was like the Olympics were just getting started at the time. So I just stayed up all night watching the Olympics. I think they were in so I just that's how I was learning Italian, right? And I get the benefit of watching Olympics and all that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I started learning Spanish when I was like 21. How many years ago was that? It was when I was, but that's like a late age. That's like arguably a later age. Most people are like, you gotta be 14. And like, I talk to him all the time, and I feel like I like have beat the American standard of Spanish, which is just, habla community, like,
What's wrong with that?
No, I mean, you know what I mean, though. I feel like, it's like.
The fact that you took more than one semester weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So like that is an
American standard is also the name of the toilet, so.
That's true. One voice is Scotland.
I'm gonna edit that out of this.
But like I guess what I'm saying is like it's easy to impress people as an American. Like it's much easier to impress someone as somebody from the United States than it is like for someone who comes here. Like here, you're just so used to hearing all these crazy accents all the time that we're just like, no, that's fine. Like it doesn't matter that you skip every pronoun. Like I get it. And like, but like if you just the fact that you could speak anything that sounds familiar to somebody in another country, they're like, oh, that's crazy. But I was gonna say what you were talking about is really interesting because like I had learned really like Spanish from like South America. Like I was dating a Colombian girl, and like it was all around me all the time. There's 60 million Spanish speakers here. Like if you want to practice, you can just walk down the street. But when I found out that I was going to go do this program in Spain, I was like, I gotta like get accustomed to that. And I downloaded this TV show that was like super tacky. It was like the Full House meets like vulgar. Like I don't even know, this breed of comedy does not even exist here because it would be considered like in poor taste.
What was it called?
It was called Los Serrano. You've seen Los Serrano. And like I just binge watched the hell out of but I just binge watched the hell out of the show for like 4 weeks, and like that's all I did. I was just like, I watched the show, and you'd be amazed at how ripped you can be by like something you really don't understand. Like you're just like, I don't like this. No, it's crazy. I didn't think he was gonna do that. He didn't seem to have the balls to do that. But anyway, so you like watch that show, and like the crazy thing was when I got off the plane, I remember getting off the plane and like tripping on the step to get on the bus, and some guy was just like, like crazy curse words at me, and I was like, I recognize that. I'm so happy. I was like the euphoria from like understanding the story. Understand. It's crazy, and like it probably actually isn't like culture isn't like a TV show, but like at the same time, just watching them for like 4 weeks totally like tuned me in to what I was gonna hear. So like if you could find something like that that's tailored to the experience you're gonna have, like that's a huge deal. And I started doing that with German. You know that show like Turkish for Anfänger or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
I started watching that, and like I could like me and Norman do like a language exchange with Spanish and German, and I can like already understand him a little better just from like listening to real situations like that.
Well, real
So go ahead and
situations, I don't know about.
Well, I think it's harder to understand television than someone speaking. So like
They
that's
speak faster than regular Germans, which is, that always bothered me.
exactly.
Inside and Schweizer we should also check out.
It's like a medicine ball, you know. It's like if you can do the TV show, you can do a real, face to face.
But the best thing is to find a girlfriend from the culture.
Yes.
Friend was better.
I have a funny story about that.
Problem is, that put a ring in your finger, you can't go on to the next line, but you're done.
Can we give Michael a hand for an awesome
Yes.
Thank you. Cushionum. Is that how you say thank you in Hungarian?
Cushion him.
Yes, I got it.
It's
Yes.
the opposite of Polish. The SZ is a.
Oh,
SZ.
oh, cus.
Have you guys had, when you're doing, when you're doing that, getting that level of fluency in your language that you've been in the country for a while, you're starting to think, yeah, I got this. And then you come, yesterday I was great, today all of a sudden, I missed a word, and now it just all unravels, and everything, I'm stumbling over my tongue, and my good friends will say, it's okay, speak English, don't say it. All right. You guys ever run into that?
That's you're in the twilight zone, you're like in the.
Yeah, you're like,
no,
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 that's the language, I shut off English.
Yeah, so today we got this Belushka with flying that inch. And I'm like, oh, I forgot I'm in America.
I landed in Miami where everybody's got an accent speaking Spanish, and I'm like, okay, I'll throw back Italian at it, and they're all looking at me like, listen to this pretty real things you can speak Spanish.
Everybody, just a quick note here. The presentation, of course, is over. If you want to talk to some people, get to know each other, a lot of us go to the Village Draft House, which is just, I think, 2 blocks over. It's in walking distance. It's in European walking distance. It's not even American walking distance. So it's up to you whether you want to take your car over there or not. And there's no pressure to go, but stick around if you want to talk to some people and grab a bite to eat or a drink.
So it's on Wade Avenue or?
Yeah, right, no, it's just on the sound. Next time around, there won't be a presentation, because we'll be meeting at Neomod, just sharing a meal together and having fun, just relaxing like that. After that, we'll do presentations again. I'm trying to set up a big forum thing, but more on that later. Let's see. If you have an idea for a presentation, whether you want to present or you'd like somebody else to present, you've got a really good idea for a topic, no pressure. Just come to me. You can talk to me right now. You can send me a message. Some people told me they don't know how to send a message on Meetup. I can show you how. It's easy. Pretty much just click on the face. And let me know so we can share our knowledge here and get smarter and get more excited about language and feed our habit. Oh, by the way, I should let you know that Meetup is not free to me. This Meetup is free to everyone, but if you like what we do here, please feel free to just drop $1 or whatever you feel it's worth in here. We get cool stuff like, we spend money on cool stuff like this so that everybody can see the presentation. These nifty name tags, saving the planet one by one. So no pressure, absolutely no obligation, but if you like it, please feel free to drop something in there. I certainly appreciate it.
And they want to keep the noise, the library wants us to keep the noise level down here, so after the meetings, it can get out of hand.
Yeah, unfortunately. I want everybody to talk, but we've gotten complaints a few times, so.
Oh, really?
Well, we're communicative, that's just the way it is.
Don't forget to get that again.
Oh, yeah, and try to remember to give these back, please, because we reached out to them.
I really wish it was a regular.
Ach Mensch, wo habe ich nicht gewohnt? Bist du Deutscher? Also ich habe am Anfang in Freiburg gewohnt und danach in Bielefeld, danach Leipzig, dann wieder fast in Bielefeld in Paderborn und dann letztendlich in Hamburg 2 Jahre. Und da habe ich meine Frau in Bielefeld kennengelernt, in der Stadt der Liebe. Sie ist aus Petershagen, das kennt kein Schwein, in der Nähe von Hannover, so unweit.
Ja, du weißt, was die Leute über Bielefeld sagen. Keine Sau.
Gibt's nicht, ja. Also
Gibt's nicht.
5 Jahre meines Lebens, ich weiß gar nicht, wo ich war. Achso, deswegen macht ihr Deutsch zusammen. Okay, cool. Nicht schlecht. Cool, also aus welcher Stadt kommst du?
Aus Darmstadt.
Darmstadt, nicht schlecht.
Du bist quasi immer außen rum. Du warst nie in Darmstadt, Frankfurt, du bist immer so außen rum.
Ja, aber ich habe so fast so wie ein Blitz. Das sieht so aus wie ein Blitzschlag durch Deutschland. Also knapp dran vorbei. Freiburg auf dem Weg nach Bielefeld. Wie lange wohnst du schon hier?